One of the most basic and central issues that can be considered by the human mind is the question, does God exist? The only way to answer this question is to seek out and examine the evidence that is available to us. We know that the universe exists and is real. If something cannot account for its own existence, then it is said to be contingent because it is dependent upon something outside of itself to explain its existence. Logic tells us that if something exists contingently, it must have a cause. The law of causality states that every material effect must have an adequate preceding cause. Since the universe is a contingent effect, what caused the universe? The universe is not eternal and did not create itself from nothing. The law of thermodynamics states that energy can be neither created nor destroyed. It can only change forms. There is a set amount of energy and matter in the universe. There can never be more or less of both, only one form or other. Matter and energy cannot come into existence by itself. Discoveries in astronomy and scientific evidence tells us that the universe is expanding and that it must have had a beginning. All of the suns and all of the galaxies throughout the universe have a finite amount of hydrogen to use as their fuel. Our sun still has 98% of its hydrogen and has only used 2%. The sun had a beginning. This tells us that there must have been a single moment of creation. If the universe is not eternal and is dependent, it must have been caused by something or someone that is independent from it. The evidence we have tells us that there is a non-contingent, eternal, self-existent, independent mind that created this universe and everything within it. The universe also demonstrates order and design. The design inherent in the universe tells us that there must have been a designer. Our universe operates in accordance with exact scientific laws. If the Earth was not exactly the right distance from the Sun, exactly the right distance from the Moon, exactly the right diameter, did not have exactly the right atmospheric pressure, have exactly the right tilt, exactly the right amount of oceanic water, and have exactly the right weight and mass, life could not exist. Scientists recognize 5 components that make up the universe: time, force, energy, space, and matter, all of which are found in the first words of the Bible. In the beginning, time, God, force, created, energy, the heavens, space, and the earth, matter. Everything had to come into being in the correct order for life to exist. Matter and light had to exist first in order to sustain plant life, which was needed in order to provide air and sustenance for the fish, the birds, and finally the animals. All of these perfect balances make life possible and could not have happened by themselves. The human body is composed of over 250 different kinds of cells, which make up complex tissues that form organs that function together in complex systems. Within the nucleus of the cell is genetic machinery that contains DNA. One human cell contains roughly 4 billion base pairs of DNA. The complexity and intricacy of the DNA molecule, combined with the huge amount of chemically coded information it contains, tells us that this supermolecule could not have happened by blind chance. One does not get a law without a lawgiver, a painting without a painter, or a musical score without a composer. Purposeful design does not happen without a designer. The design inherent in the universe is evident, from the cosmos to the cell, and is sufficient to draw the conclusion that God does exist. If there is design in nature, that design demands the existence of a designer. Mankind alone is aware of a moral code of good and evil. Morality is unique to humankind. Morality and ethics originate from the mind of God, the moral lawgiver. It is impossible to formulate a system of ethics by which we can objectively differentiate right from wrong without a moral lawgiver. Without God, There's no way mankind could reach a rational conclusion on what is ethical. We would find ourselves in a chaotic sea of despair, where might makes right, the strong subjugate the weak, and where each man does what is right in his own eyes. What we believe profoundly influences how we act. Mankind has a sense of moral obligation. We feel responsible, ashamed, frightened, or guilty at transgressing the voice of conscience. This implies that there is one to whom we are responsible, God. Only mankind has a desire to seek love. Our whole life is spent trying to fill a gap that exists in our souls. A gap that can only be filled by the love of God. No matter what we do to try to fill this gap, money, drugs, alcohol, sex, possessions, the hole will never be filled until we turn back to God and accept His law that is found only in the Bible. Philosophers agree that a transcendent lawgiver is the only plausible explanation for an objective moral standard. If we believe in right and wrong, and then ask ourselves why, we must also ask where this conscience came from and why it exists. It exists because God gave it to us. We can also know that God exists from other evidence that is found in the Bible. The 66 books of the Bible were written by over 40 inspired men in 3 languages on 3 continents over approximately 1,600 years and does not have any contradictions or inconsistencies. God also told the writers of the Bible things there is no way at that time they could have known. An example is found in Isaiah 40:22, where he tells us the earth is a circle. Leviticus 13:45 talks about germs and disease. Man did not discover this until many centuries later. We can know the Bible is from God through the prophecies that were made in the Old Testament hundreds of years before their fulfillment. Each one was accurate and complete. Archaeology has also provided numerous evidence to support that the Bible is from God. One example is the Hittites, who are mentioned over 40 times in the Bible. It was argued by some scholars that the Hittites never existed. They were discovered to be real in the late 1800s. This, with many other archaeological discoveries, supports the information given to us by God in the Bible. Together, all of these evidences tell us that God exists and that the Bible is from God. As we search for answers to life's questions, we can know who God is and what He wants from us by studying His inspired Word found only in the Bible. If you would like to know more about this topic, or if you have other Bible questions, please contact a Church of Christ in your area.
Jesus saves, Jesus saves, bear the news to every land, climb the steeps and cross the ways, onward 'tis our Lord's command. Jesus saves, Jesus saves.